Okay, here you go. Here's all of human history. Some of you have seen this. Time goes from uh, bottom to top here. So you start off with the early civilizations, Egypt, Babylon. First big one is Persia, then the Han Chinese, in comes Rome, yields to Byzantium, and ultimately Ottomans come and take over. The China just tinkers along from dynasty to dynasty. You get communism. Um, so that's the grand sweep of things. Um, so just to blow it up a little bit so you can see it better. And then I blew it up even more. So the Indus Valley, starting back 5,000 years ago, up we come. Here's Greece. We left them out the last time. Here come the Celts. In the New World, the Olmec, which means rubber, the rubber people, yield to the Mayans. And now it gets really fun. You can see the caliphates, the Middle East, a little more detail. Um, and then we get the Holy Roman Empire, Europe coming into its own. The Habsburgs, we talked a lot about. Europe, the Safavids that preceded modern day Iran. Uh, and here are the Tokugawas. They make it. Here's Japan's first uh, appearance on this map, at any rate. Um, and then finally, the last one up to modern day. Here's the Qing, the Manchu dynasty. They get the British and the Opium Wars, and here this is China's century of humiliation, and they're still resentful about this century of humiliation from the Opium Wars and the British Empire. Japan with the Meiji Restoration, um, obviously part of World War II. Um, and then you see the Habsburgs shrink down a little bit, but then German expansion, quite a bit of expansion with colonies even. And then 250 years ago, there's this little blue thing coming here. Ken Burns is going to spend a lot of time on the early years of us. Um, the New World, you get the Toltec yielding to the Aztec. In South America, the Incas. There were other civilizations, but Inca's the first big one. So anyway, this is fun, but we got serious business. Uh, here's Netflix has just introduced the biography of James Garfield. James Garfield. And this actor, Iko and I saw him play Ulysses Grant and another, I think it was Prime, a really nice series on Ulysses Grant with this actor. But we have a really good friend who's seen this and says it's really good. Death by Lightning. Um, so does have any of you ever seen the monument to James Garfield in the Bay Area?
Yep, I have.
Okay, you want to tell the group where it is?
Um, okay, I may be wrong, but I think it's at the east end of the Panhandle. Is that right?
Well, that's very close. It's at the far end of the music concourse. So
Ah, okay. Yeah,
here's the bandstand
that's
at
right.
the
Yeah,
far end, and then at the other end, this is when if you get assassinated, you get a really big monument pretty quick.
yeah,
And so this was the Garfield Monument then. And here it is now.
yeah, yes.
So you've all passed by it. I think they've got a Ferris wheel near there now.
That's gone. That's
Yeah.
down at Fisherman's Wharf now.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was there, John, till a
Was
few
oh,
months
was
ago.
there? Yeah.
wow. It's hard to keep up. Thank
Gone.
you. I'm glad we have these sessions. Um, okay, another San Francisco luminary. I can't resist. Our local newspaper uh, put this on the front page. The coach of the Warriors, and he is more politically involved than most, particularly with gun control. And he is very closely connected with the people who were behind the Brady Bill. And they've continued as an organization for gun control. And he attends, and each time he comes, he brings his notebook and pen, and they call him the North Star of their movement. And why is that? Um, this is the Brady bill. Brady is Reagan's assistant, one of Reagan's assistants, and he's a collateral damage when the assassin went after Reagan in 1981. And Brady had a bullet to the head that left him debilitated. But the movement with his name continues on, and Kerr is particularly interested. His family had been involved in the Middle East, three generations in Beirut. And both Steve Kerr and his father were born in Lebanon. And Steve Kerr's father was assassinated by Hezbollah in Beirut in his office at the American University. And so Steve Kerr was 18-year-old freshman at Arizona when his father was assassinated. And that's why he's been involved in gun control ever since. This was Steve Kerr, who was born also in Lebanon with his father and brothers and sisters, third generation. And he played for Arizona. He took his frustrations out on the basketball court. And then he made it into the NBA, and he was part of five championships as a player. And now, as a coach with the Warriors, he's given us four more championships. So he's up there in the history of major players in the NBA, ranking ninth or eighth, if you want to count it differently. Um, But he is also a liberal involved in other causes. He spoke at the Democratic National Convention, talked about standing up to the bully, namely Trump. But he's also known for a sense of humor. So I don't know if any of you watched the Olympics and the championship game in Paris. With you couldn't write a better story. It was America versus France, and Steph Curry went absolutely wild. He just was throwing up shots from long distances and making them. And he's got what's called attitude, where he thinks he's hit the shot that's ended the game and there's no hope for the other team. He makes this gesture, which he says night night, which means that the other team should just go to bed and forget about it. So that's attitude in the NBA. Some people would say it's cockiness, but it's part of NBA culture. So when Steve Kerr is delivering his speech to the Democratic National Convention, he goes, "This is what we'll do on election night to Donald Trump, and he should just go to bed and go to sleep politically forever." Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Cockiness backfired. But the NBA has a long history of being politically active, starting with Bill Russell, who went to school at USF, University of San Francisco, and won two national championships. This is Oscar Robertson, who I saw play when he was a sophomore in high school and went on to become one of the NBA greats. This, of course, is Muhammad Ali, Lou Alcindor, very active, particularly in Black Lives Matter. But Steve Kerr continues to be active, attended the No Kings rally down at the Embarcadero. So he's much more than just a basketball coach. He's a real mensch. Um, all right. I like this.
John, before you leave basketball, I'm sort of a sports fan. Can
Yeah.
you go back to the slide? Can you go back to the slide with all the championships that people won? I got a question for you.
Yeah.
That player right there, Sam Jones. I remember Sam Jones. Like Bill Russell, did he win all of those as a Celtic?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought, but I didn't know because you didn't put it there in parentheses. Yeah, I remember he was with who was the guy from who was the guy who went to college with Bill Russell?
Sam Jones.
That's Sam Jones
Or
too, huh?
no, I'm wrong. KC Jones.
Oh,
The wrong Jones. KC Jones.
Is KC Jones and Bill Russell the same college class?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
They
I
won.
guess KC left the Celtics or didn't play as long as Bill did?
Well, I can't remember that. I can't remember that, Tom.
Yeah, I remember KC was a coach. He coached the Celtics for a while.
Yeah, he did, and so did Russell.
Oh yeah, yeah. But Russell, as I recall, Russell he was I shouldn't say just, but I will. He was just a player coach. He was never just the coach, right?
Yes, he was a player coach.
Yeah, KC Jones, I don't think was ever a player coach. He was just a player, and then he became a coach.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So I was just interested in those other Celtics on the list there. I mean, Heinsohn, he comes before Bill Russell, I think, and Havlicek might have been at the tail end of Bill Russell. And was Tom Sanders with the Celtics too?
I think he was. Satch, yeah.
Yeah, and then Red Auerbach, he was coach right before Bill Russell became player coach.
Yeah, exactly.
But most of that list there is dominated by Celtics.
Goodbye.
Except for Phil Jackson, huh?
Yeah. I think we're getting the hook, Tom. Thank you, the rest of you, for putting up with us. So
Yeah,
we,
I'll cut myself off.
yeah, and yeah, but anyway, we're lucky as basketball fans to have this guy who merges basketball with politics and social awareness. So there you go. Uh, I put this up because it matches with my next slide. It shows, I love it, Trump as an obese baby. And so here is the segue to obesity in America. And you can see it's just going up and up and up. And it's very discouraging because it's going to mean at some point that life expectancy is going to go down. So for the doctors here, I think we're all familiar with this and fighting against it. All right. So
Just to add to that, John, the Economist article you're referencing actually says, in spite of the use of Ozempic, and is it Wegovy and etc., there's been a marginal only improvement in obesity, which you can see kind of flattening out there a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah. So my question on this chart is, like, if you go to 1990, and if those people are still alive and they're still morbidly obese, they would be part way on the 2024. They would take up the bottom part of that vertical solid red part, correct?
Well, I don't know if you can fractionate these things. This is just a summary graph. I'm not sure about that, Tom.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's been an increase in morbidly obesity.
Well, the morbid obese have a very short lifespan, so probably a lot of the morbidly obese people here are no longer with us. Yeah. Okay, thanks. All right. Any other comments or questions about my freewheeling introductory topics?
Hey, John, morbid obesity, is that BMI over 40?
30.
Is it 30?
I think so.
Because 30 is not that much. If you're 5'8" and you're 210 pounds, you're close to morbid obesity if it's BMI of 30.
Well,
I think it's
doesn't that,
35. 35 is what I remember.
Yeah, I think it's more than 30, but yeah.
well, that graph, I don't know.
No, that's the percentage, not BMI.
Oh, I can't tell.
I'll look it up while we're talking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, off we go. The American Revolution. I don't know how many of you had a chance to take a look at it. It was on a Sunday night and last night. I've only been able to watch the first episode, so what I say will be confined to the first episode. This is the chapters, so it's going to be on for 6 nights, and these are the 6 chapters of the TV show. Now, there's a companion book that's a little bit different. And I've had a chance to enjoy parts of that companion book as reference. I'm not reading it straight, but this is the menu. So tonight will be the times that try men's souls, which is from the Declaration of Independence in the early days. Those were very trying indeed. And I think included this timeline is when Washington gets trapped on Long Island in Brooklyn and barely escapes with his life. He had to escape in the dead of night in the fog to get over to Manhattan and avoid the trap. The British had landed at the east end of Long Island and had him totally surrounded in Brooklyn, right at Brooklyn Heights. So that probably will be on tonight. There's a whole book about it called 1776 by David. Oh, help me, somebody. He did John Adams. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just want to come back to this Economist article reviewing it. They say, Trump should like it. He probably won't because it's probably going to be way too woke for him. But he should realize how deeply patriotic Ken Burns is. And from the Economist's point of view, being a British newspaper, they call themselves a newspaper. They're actually a magazine. For their lights, Ken Burns is a little too sentimental. But Ken Burns also says it's the most consequential revolution in history. And that's an interesting question. And he points out that there are some other elements that Trump might like, that the founding fathers were at times ruthless and imperialist, particularly when it came to expansion into the West. We've talked about that as manifest destiny. But they make the statement that Americans could benefit from watching the film together, and I think that's probably true. But all through is the stain of slavery, and it's interesting that most of the American slaves who escaped to fight with the British. About 2/3, 1/3. Native Americans fought on both sides, and they make a little comment that in fact the Revolutionary Army was more integrated than it would be again for 200 years since we backpedaled quickly into slavery. And so when the war was over, one of Washington's demands was the return of his slaves from the British Army. And he got that. Talking about Native Americans and integrated into the Army, these are the Navajo code talkers. During World War II, there was no written representation of the Navajo language, which made it ideal for code talking. There's no way the Japanese could understand the messages, particularly since most non-Navajos couldn't. And then there's the code talkers, and then there's Ira Hayes. So for those of you who want a nice biography of Ira Hayes, listen to the Johnny Cash song. Ira Hayes had a problem with alcohol and had a very tragic life. So I think this is interesting. As long as they're talking about integrated American forces, I've been following this. I find it interesting. As of today, only 54% of the American armed forces are white. And it's been slowly going down. Obviously, increase African Americans after Vietnam, after the volunteer army, but Latinos. And I also will point out that when we lived on the Navajo reservation, there were a lot of contemporary Native Americans who joined the military. A lot of them sort of had the mentality of a warrior culture. And I thought this was interesting. This was all the top brass that Hegseth got to come to Washington. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, that picture has a lot of old white guys. Um,
Are you there, Kristen?
what's that? Oh, um, you see the falling percentage of white people in the armed forces, which made me think about the CNN documentary about white genocide that I watched last night, wherein Elon Musk's father is asked what he thinks of a minority white America in the future. And he says that's the worst thing that could ever happen. So it's a very interesting interview.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
Hey, John, while we're on updates, BMI greater than 40 is morbid obesity, or greater than 35 with comorbidity, or greater than 100 pounds over ideal body weight, regardless of BMI.
Okay, good. Thank you, Pep. All right. And so, what else might bother Trump? Uh, that Washington ordered his troop be inoculated against smallpox, not vaccinated, because there was no vaccine. But inoculation at that time was really variolization, where you take a live smallpox virus and inject it into the skin. And then it's a race between your immune system and the smallpox virus as to who can capture control of the body. And 85% of the time, the immune system would win and leave the subject immune to smallpox. But 15% they wouldn't, and then a full-blown case of smallpox. So it wasn't for the faint-hearted. Um, the other point that's made is how much the founding fathers feared a demagogue. We've talked about that in the past. Oliver Cromwell had seized control of Britain 120 years before our revolution, roughly. And that such a demagogue would mount the hobby horse of popularity and throw things into confusion. Does that sound familiar? Here we are. And then they point out that J.D. Vance, his idea is that the revolution was not just an idea, as I think Ken Burns constantly says, that people will not fight for abstractions. But the editorial writer said, but they did. A lot of them, abstractions mattered, and still does matter.
John,
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment about the smallpox inoculation. Benjamin Franklin had a son I think in the 1730 or so, and his wife did not want inoculation, and he died at age 4 of smallpox.
Wow.
And so it's related to our story of Benjamin Franklin and the Revolution, but
Yeah. Interesting. And John Adams had 5 children, and Abigail, John was away, and Abigail decided to use an inoculation. and one of the five almost died. Uh, so, yeah, it was a real thing. By the way, the Chinese had been doing it for centuries, and it came to the Anglophone world, the British world, when a tourist from Britain, aristocratic woman, visited Istanbul and saw it being practiced on the street, and she bought it back. So it was really a Chinese invention. Um, okay, so the Ken Burns documentary, there was one section that I just found fascinating, and it was in the 1750s, where Virginia was worried about the French. They were coming down from Canada. They ultimately wanted to get down the Mississippi. They'd had explorers on the Mississippi and the Ohio River in the 1600s. And they were coming down seriously with soldiers. And so Virginia was really worried about the Ohio Valley. Why? Because they had a lot of investors who were speculating on real estate in the Ohio Valley. So they sent Washington down, and he encountered a small troop of French soldiers, and he fired on them. And they make the point that it was probably the first shot fired in the 7 Years' War, which became an international war that spread to Europe with the tensions between Britain and the French. And then the British pulled in the Germans on their side. And so that was an interesting statement. And he, however, did not do much other than fire the first shot. He was captured by the French, but allowed to go home. The French didn't want to cause any more trouble, so they just let him go after he was just being a pest. So off he goes. He gets sent back to the Ohio Valley, though, as a scout for General Braddock. Now, the British are serious about it. It's not just the militia of Virginia. And so this is the first time that Washington is a British officer. And he goes back with General Braddock. And the object is the confluence of these rivers where currently Pittsburgh stands. So this was a very strategic point. And the French had put up a Fort Duquesne, and the goal was to capture that. That's what Braddock was supposed to do. But Braddock gets killed in battle. It's not just the French, it's their Indian allies who ambush Braddock. Braddock dies, and now Washington is in control. He gets his horse gets shot out from under him twice. Washington takes over, and this is the first of his good performance in battle. And he goes back to Virginia as a hero. But he's not given a commission, which he wants in the British Army, because he is what's called a Creole. So a Creole in British parlance is just a British citizen who is not born in Britain. and therefore not to be as trusted as someone who is born in Britain. And this leaves him very bitter. Um, the imperial balance of power, I thought this was interesting. They had a three-legged stool that was supposed to give stability to the empire. First, the crown, then the House of Commons, and then the House of Lords. So we hear about our balance of power. They had their own concept of a balance of power. In 1760, there's a new king, King George III, who was the grandson of George II. But he has some mental problems. It comes into effect more after the revolution. And the speculation is, was it bipolar disorder or was it a congenital abnormality, a porphyria, where you can't process your blood products, and toxicity builds up. George III sort of struggles on, but in 1810, well after the War of Independence, he suffers his final relapse, and his son takes over as regent. His statues start coming down, and this is a famous one at the bottom of Manhattan Island on the Bowling Green there, being pulled down in 1776, a few weeks or a week after the Declaration. So back to 1754. So in parallel with Washington's adventures at the Fort Duquesne, Ben Franklin, upon hearing of Washington's struggles there, he decides, look, there's probably going to be a war with France. We've got to respond. And he draws up this allegory of a snake divided, and that if the colonies that are labeled here with their initials are going to be divided, that's not good, given that there's going to be a lot of stress coming. And this cartoon survives into the 1970s, is taken up by the Sons of Liberty. And this was a campaign to make sure that all the colonials were on the side of independence. So it was a hard sell. It was join or die. And where can you see it? You can see it on Pete Hegseth's forearm, even today. So Franklin came up with the Albany Plan, which in 20 years is going to be what they meet about in Philadelphia. So Franklin is 20 years too early. He's only 48, so he's going to get another bite at the apple. But his ideas were influenced by the Confederation of the Iroquois, and what their political system was like. So that I thought that was interesting. In 1754, Washington returns on an exploratory expedition, and encounters a French detachment. There was a Iroquois in his party, and while Washington was negotiating with the French, the Iroquois struck the Frenchman in the head with the tomahawk and reportedly washed his hands in the brains, which apparently was an Indian tradition. And so here's Washington talking to a Frenchman who winds up dead. And who was responsible? And by the way, at some point in Ken Burns' documentary, he points out that Washington's reputation, he was no genius when it came to the military. It was more his character than anything else. So Washington encountered the Iroquois another couple of times while he was surveying for land in the Ohio, and this was when he claimed as payment great sections of the Ohio River Valley. And again, during the Continental Congress, he met with the Iroquois. So the Native Americans were free to roam, and they were a more sophisticated tribe, and they expected rights as citizens. This is one of their dwellings. The documentary makes the case that there aren't just 13 colonies. There are 26 colonies, and all the other colonies are here in the Caribbean on islands, and they are the best colonies in terms of generating profit for the empire because slaves are exploited more ruthlessly. They're higher percent of the population and more ruthless. And this is the way things go for 150 years. That's a long time. There's a long incubation period to the revolution. The end of the 7 Years' War comes in 1763. And the frontier opens up. The war is over, and settlers head into west over the Appalachians. But a Native American chief, Pontiac, he organizes raids that killed 2,000 settlers. The Brits are bankrupt from the 7 Years' War, and they cannot mount any serious security protection for new settlers, so they outlaw it. No more heading west of. Oh, I'm sorry, this is too blurred. But no more heading west of the Appalachians for British citizens. But British citizens head west anyway. Oh, this is not good. And who are the land speculators? The founding fathers. In particular, Washington, who was as a surveyor paid, and he was also paid as a British officer. Even though they wouldn't let him be general, he had accumulated a lot of land, arguably more than anybody else. He was a ruthless commander when it came to prisoners, and it was his character, not his brilliance or kindness, that made him indispensable. All right, so anybody else watch either one or both the programs, and the floor is open.
This is Tom. No, I didn't, but I'm recording them and I'm looking forward to watching them.
Okay, so we can.
I watched the first episode this morning in anticipation of, of your presentation today, so I'm in sync. I also recorded the second night. I
Yeah.
was impressed with the initial scenes and kind of the Native American perspective on, all these people coming into their land, and I think it's nice to have a multiplicity. It may be a little woke, but to have a multiplicity of perspectives was nice.
John, do you think, Bob here, that it was, I saw the first episode, not the second one yet. Do you think that in terms of woke, was it an exaggeration, the idea that there had been an Iroquois or Native Confederation for centuries and a democracy present there in some form? Or do you think that was slightly exaggerated?
Yeah, I think it's exaggerated. I mean, in terms of their own definition, were they consistent? I mean, how do we judge that? Uh,
Mm.
but I, yeah, I'm not prepared to say that they were a democracy.
I noticed that Washington's work as a surveyor and his uh, almost egregious attraction to the land in the Ohio Valley was not actually mentioned very much.
Um,
It was mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah, there was one point where, and they have a number of historians discussing, and one of them said that it was primarily about property and speculation. One of them. There's a book called Leap in the Dark that I read. I think it was about 20 years ago, and Leap in the Dark, I can't remember the author. That was its whole premise, that it was about real estate.
As it gets towards the start of the revolutionary fighting, I got the impression it was almost just accidental. It was lack of communication. It could easily not have happened. What's your thinking on that? This is what I got from a very brilliant documentary. I loved it.
Yeah, where could it have been different? I mean, the stamp tax. uh, Maybe they should have just, because they weren't taxed for a long, long time, and it was just when they spent a lot of money to on the 7 Years' War, which then you come out of that and they argue, well, we spent all this money protecting you. You got to at least help pay back some of the debt.
And it wasn't very much tax. It really wasn't a lot, was it?
No.
Stamps and paper.
I think the Sons of Liberty were don't give them an inch or they'll take a mile. And so maybe the smart thing in that situation is to not ask for an inch. Yeah.
But the other accident I was thinking of was that if just 100 or so soldiers that were sent up to Lexington and then conquered. I mean, it was a minuscule body of men, and then there was the unfortunate shooting of just 5 Minutemen, and from there, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. The risk management was not their strong suit. Tom.
Yeah, I just got a comment here. You bring up this strength of character. This word character is interesting to me because I was on listening to the news yesterday, and they were talking about character and how in the old days the founders of the Constitution they always believe, and I think it talked about earlier. You had a slide up that said something about jumping on a horse and it wasn't a good kind of horse. Well, the founders of the Constitution, they always thought that the president was going to be a person who had a strength of character. And when you did not have a president who had strength of character, they would stretch the Constitution to its limits. And the what I heard in this broadcast was the founders of the Constitution, the the way to stop a president with the lack of character was impeachment. So it's sort of interesting how they brought the Constitution up in what's going on today.
Uh, it is indeed. Um, and of course, at the end of the convention, someone asked Ben Franklin, do we have a republic, sir? And he said, yes, you do, if you can keep it. So the idea that it takes maintenance, and it takes goodwill, and it takes the respect of norms, and that so there's while maybe not a lot of strict rules have been broken, all the norms have. And what are norms? It's just the expectation of the opposition that they'll be treated fairly. And the opposition certainly does not have any faith that will be treated fairly. The vituperation of Trump's speech is worrying. And the expectation is from Trump's side that if Democrats ever get power again, we'll do the same thing, even worse. So you have this lack of norms just feeding on itself. Yeah, Michael.
Well, I watched it, and I have to agree with some of the, I hate to use the word woke, but the idea they talked about, I guess one of the original regiments that was pulled together had Native Americans, blacks, and of course whites. And they said something like it would be, I don't know, 200 years before there'd ever be that kind of mixture of the races, which points out that this country got started not simply by white Christian men, although a lot of the notion is that it was a white Christian nation from the get-go. And I thought uh, maybe he's alluding to this in the program. He throws in these things about how the Indians helped, how blacks helped, and so on. And I thought that was very interesting because they're, I don't know if you want to call it revisionist history, but it's bringing up things that might be called an inconvenient truth. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah. The um, and who could vote, right?
Right.
The end when we get further into it, the most of the soldiers that fought and put their life on the line couldn't vote, and that wouldn't be corrected for decades. Um, And there were a lot of rebellions in the early years, the Whiskey Rebellion, um, and there were almost, and we'll see this probably in the coming episodes, mutinies. Um, Washington had to face down the mutineers a couple of times. Um, so yeah, it wasn't guaranteed.
The other thing was the idea that in, and I don't know if it was so such the case in Britain, but the idea that you could have a vote of confidence in the whole legislature, or maybe the House of Commons could be thrown out, which they and the pre and their uh, not premier, but could be thrown out. And the idea that we'd have this stable thing where we'd have a president for 4 years, and the only way to get rid of him was impeachment. Was that such a great idea? Or is it such a great idea? Would we have gone through a succession of presidents over the years were it not for the fact that a president was guaranteed of being in for 4 years unless A, he died in office, and or B, got impeached, which hasn't been accomplished in 250 years, despite what most people would consider an impeachable offense when Trump called on his friends to storm the Capitol and try to overturn the election. I mean, if that wasn't a high crime and misdemeanor, I don't know what was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so, the question is that really a good thing to have this idea of a president who cannot be just disposed of easily by a vote of confidence? Um, I don't know, because at this point they talk about Trump's popularity being way down, and he doesn't care. I mean, he knows he's got 4 years no matter what. So he can say all the outlandish things he wants, um, and do all the outlandish things. And he's not going to get impeached in all likelihood.
Yeah. But
Hey, John, this is Tom. Before we leave, can I say something about your past presentations about China?
sure.
So, because of your past presentations within the last week, I ran across some interesting things. Number one, I went to a talk given by a general in the Marines who's a general in the Pacific region. And it was pretty interesting what he said about the Marines and the military. This just happened right after Veterans Day about China. China in a lot of respects, they have a lot more technological warfare advances than the United States does.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw recently in the media about the kind of drones that the United States has and the kind of drones that China has. The drones from China are there's a lot more different kinds. It's like they have more advanced drones than the United States has. And what this general said was, it's a different kind of war these days. It's not like fighting World War I. And here was something really interesting. He said, because of all the satellites up in the air, if you launch a rocket from one place and send it to another place, the satellites could detect exactly where that rocket was launched from. And if it was a man-launched rocket, within 15 seconds or 30 seconds, there could be another rocket sent from the enemy to knock that rocket station out. So I thought that was sort of interesting on how technologically advanced warfare has gotten.
Yeah. Our son makes satellites, and so he's given us an earful on this stuff. Maybe he could be a guest sometime. But you can tell a lot from this army of satellites, just uh, from the heat that comes from the barrel of the launcher. You can tell a lot. And artificial intelligence, oh my goodness, who knows?
Yeah, and the other thing too about technology is you have to be these days careful what you say over like in the old days walkie-talkies, because the enemy can detect where those walkie-talkie signals are coming from, and within 20 seconds or a half a minute or a minute, you could be wiped out. And the other thing that was interesting that the general said was, a lot of the technology that the country of China has, warfare technology, they didn't spend a lot of money on research and development. They just stole it from the United States.
Sure, sure. Yeah, uh, there's a new series, actually a movie, The House of Dynamite, by Kathleen Bigelow. She's the one that got the Academy Award for Full Metal Jacket, I think it was. It's quite riveting, and it's about the United States noticing a launch from somewhere in East Asia. It's unclear whether it's Russia, China, Korea, but they can tell it's headed for Chicago. And what happens? She knows her stuff, and she takes you behind the scenes to see what we have for early detection and who mans that and how is it coordinated. So House of Dynamite, not reassuring.
John, I also saw a piece about how the drones they've been launching are so small that those are very tough to detect with radar. And that when they've been going after the Russian refineries, they've been using these very quite small drones that can fly very low and under radar. So there's a whole nother war that's drone based.
Yes, David, quite right. In fact, the Europeans have got no idea how to track back where the drones have been coming in over Denmark and Germany. And
Right.
it's most peculiar that there's no means of confirming or affirming that it's the Russians who are launching them from their shadow oil fleet ships. And that's the suspicion.
Bruce.
Yeah, a question or just a comment. A week or I think not this week, but or last Monday, but well, a Monday ago, last John Stewart had a couple guys. They were representatives, and one of the things that they had commented on, they were on the Defense Committee, and this is before the government was opened up again. But they commented that there used to be 19 defense contractors in the U.S. and that we're down to five. And there's only five defense contractors that still make weapons. Um, and it's Fairchild and Lockheed that there's as I say five of them. But it's interesting to me to to hear that.
Yeah, not as diverse. Okay. Any other comments? All right.
Right, one last one on China. It's interesting that we're very concerned, some of us are, about what we're up to in the Caribbean with our Coast Guard and Navy. It's 1,000 miles, I think, from Florida, from our coastline, maybe more. Um, and yet the Chinese are up to much more than that in what they call, or we also call, the South China Sea. We should rename it. That is so far from the mainland of China, so far down towards Vietnam. And now the Japanese are part of this issue as well, of course, because they claim islands virtually within eyesight of Taiwan. And so Takaichi has been creating all sorts of problems the last week around, I think they're called the Stanley Islands, so not the Stanley Islands, the Philippines. And they're just 20 miles from the Taiwanese coast. And of course, the Chinese are sending their Coast Guard around those islands, doing pretty much what we're doing, though they're not randomly bombing Taiwanese and Japanese ships yet.
Well, I think if you look at the last, say 300 years, what country has controlled Taiwan the most? I mean, if you go back and include Japanese pirates, Japanese pirates, it's Japan. I think outright they've controlled them since around the 1880s, since the Meiji Restoration. So
Yeah, but that's a good point. I mean, that part of the world, there's like the United States has ships there, China has ships there. I don't know if the Japanese has ships theirs, but but there's all these countries and ships floating around there. So it's a little touchy and you got to be careful.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Well, we did the maps of the South China Sea last week, so I'm glad it took. All right, guys.
All righty. Bye.
Next week, we're going to be out of town, but it's possible I could get on anyway. I've certainly got a lot to say about China, so it's not a matter of preparation. It's just a matter of access. We'll play it by ear. And then the week after that, we're babysitting. So same, it's still possible. I just don't know.
All right.
Okay, enjoy Ken Burns.
All righty. Bye.
Great job, John. Thanks.
Thank you.